This video proudly brought to you by the fine people at Housemade Industrial. Whether you're new to knife making or a seasoned pro, visit housemade.us to up your game with affordable quality gear. What is going on? Welcome to the OG Frenchie. In today's video, we are picking back up on working on the French Saber. In last episode, we got the Damascus forged out, we got the blade forged out and shaped. We also spent the time to put in the bevels and grind in the fuller. So we are picking back up where we left off, and we're going to start by lighting up the forge, bringing it up to temperature, and doing some thermocycling. We got some pretty good smoke going on, and as you can see, there is a fireball, and that's because I'm using a 2 by 2 inch square metal pipe inside of both of these forges to act as a baffle. This particular pipe had some powder coating on the outside, so we're burning that off. And once we get it off and the forge up to temperature, we're going to go ahead and run a few normalizing cycles before we get into quenching the blade. I feel like this is really important on most every knife that you do, but especially on the ones that you're going to forge. Alright, so I have taken the time to thermocycle the sword, and we are ready to quench this thing. I've got a long piece of rebar sitting in there heating up, and that's to heat up the oil. And I've got this in a new quench tank that's going to be long enough for the sword. I have spent quite a bit of time preparing the metal, doing the thermocycling to relax the steel and get it ready for a good quench. Now normally when I quench a blade, it's not that big a deal. Just stick it in the oil and just hope for the best. I'm really nervous about this one. I really don't want it to screw up. So I've taken all of the necessary steps to give me the best chance at a successful hardening of the sword. So there we go. We're about to dunk it in the oil. Wish me luck. It is also 7 o'clock in the morning. I was going to quench it last night, but another wives' tale is that if you quench your blade in the morning with the sunrise, then you might have a better hardened blade. I don't know. Maybe I read that somewhere. Either way, we're about to quench the blade. Let's do it. Also, too, the great thing about having a thermocouple is that you know the actual temperature of your forge. And you can see we're running at 1590, which is about 40 degrees hotter than what I was hoping for. But you can also tell that I've got the forge cranked way down. So that is something to consider. Now I can close these valves up just a touch more, and you notice the flame getting a little smaller, and we're closing these valves down just a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but this thing is barely running. And you can see over here our temperature is coming down. So if you do not have a thermocouple, I would highly recommend investing in one, because you can literally fine-tune your forge to get the exact temperature that you're looking for. Just thought I would throw that out there. So right now I am fine-tuning the forge. You can see we're at 1506 and slowly climbing back up to 1525 is what we're shooting for, and we're going to try to hold for about 10 minutes, and that should give us hopefully the best that the steel has to offer. All right, so I have taken it out of the vise, and now that it's cooled down, you can see some of that pattern starting to poke through, and it is looking really cool. I've also taken a file and tested it real quick, and that is a good sound. Now that we're there, we're gonna go ahead and throw this in the oven at 400 degrees for two 2-hour cycles, and we'll bring some of that hardness back, and then we'll be ready to continue working on this thing. Didn't end up too bad for the most part. Hopefully you can pick that up. It is relatively straight. There is actually a little bend back here. I don't know if you can pick it up or not. There you go. So it's just this back section, and the tang is over this way just a touch. But I think that for the most part, it's not too bad. So we should be able to throw this in the angle iron and persuade it back during the temper. And then whatever is left from after tempering, we could probably get with the grinder. So success. Let's go ahead and throw it in the oven. All right, so we've got the blade out of the oven. It has tempered for a total of 4 hours at 400 degrees, and putting it between two pieces of angle iron and smushing it straight really helped a lot. You can get a shot of it here. You can see that we are nice and straight. It did have a little bit of a warp back in here and right in here, but that definitely resolved itself in the temper. We're going to get all the forge scale off of it, put back in the fullers a little bit, redefine those, probably profile the tip up a little bit, and grind the bevels. Let's get it. All right, so I started with a 45-degree angle here along the cutting edge just to knock off these sharp corners on the cutting edge. And I did that with a used 36 grit ceramic belt. And these work really good for that sort of thing. I guess it's a 40, not a 36, a 40. Anyway, I got the 45s in, and then I started to cut the plunge line in, and it wasn't going so great. I'm like, what the heck? Oh yeah, duh, I gotta put on a new belt. So I did, and I put on a fresh, I believe this is a 50 grit, and it's a ceramic belt, but this is a 3M, I believe it's called Cubitron belt. And this thing is absolutely awesome. I went from making little grind marks like this, just, you know, barely digging in, almost like the blade was harder than the belt, to a nice, good bevel here. I mean, this was a couple of passes. It is just shredding this metal off of here. And you can see I'm still right in the process of working my way down the blade, but wanted to just share that with you. You always hear people talk about that, you know, use your used belts for hard corners and such, but when you go to grind in your actual knife or sword or blade bevel, to use a new belt. Well, that is 100% true. I can't tell you how much easier that is with a fresh belt. It doesn't get caught up and skip very much. I mean, it just chews through this.
So anyway, thought I would pause, share that with you. In fact, I can show you, I will, on this side, I'll show you what a used belt looks like when I try to grind in the bevels, and then we'll switch to a fresh belt and show you the difference of what it looks like. All right, so here is the blade edge, and you can see I've got it 45 to in. So I'm pushing in pretty hard and it's working, but it's just pretty slow. Let's go ahead and throw on a new belt and we'll see just how effortless this really is. You can see that this thing just absolutely shreds through it. So, I know it's kind of silly to put this in the video, and a lot of people who make knives and swords probably already know this, but don't forget to change out your belts. All right, let's get back to it. So after getting this brass handle cleaned up a little bit, you can see that we've got a really good starting point for this thing. It is beefy. Holy moly, this thing probably weighs somewhere in the ballpark of 3 pounds. It is a lot of brass. So we are going to have to shave quite a bit off of it. Okay, so now that I've taken the time to go around the exterior of the handle and get most of the big pits out, we now need to get the inside of the handle where the fingers are going to be. And there's really no good way to do this on the belt grinder. Option A, files. And if I had another month, that might be a viable option. Option number 2, a carbide burr. And I have been using that a little bit. It's slow moving, but it does work. Option number 3, oscillating spindle sander. And this is a pretty good option, except you're kind of limited with this. I do have smaller cores, but we're working with aluminum oxide, and that's also, it's okay. It's just slow moving. I just recently picked this thing up for 20 or 30 bucks. And this is a little tiny belt grinder or belt sander, and it works pretty stinking good. Now it has the aluminum oxide belt still, but as you can see, it can really get down into these areas pretty good. So anyway, if you find yourself making a brass handle with only a few days left to finish it, those are kind of your options. I don't really see another way to get in here. So with a combination of files, the oscillating spindle sander, the carbide burr, and this little file grinder, I'm going to be getting in here and trying to remove the pits. Let's get after some of that.
Well, finally, we made it to the end of the build. I know the last part of the video was sped up and in a hurry, but that's because I was sped up and in a hurry in real life. I had so much to do still on this sword by Wednesday, and that only gave me 4 days to finish this thing up. And I work a full-time job, got the wife and the 3 kids, and needless to say, my time was extremely limited in the evenings to wrap this thing up. So, is it perfect? No, absolutely not. There are lots of flaws in this thing, but I am pretty pleasantly surprised with the outcome. For the amount of time that I had finishing this thing up to what it looks like, I'm actually pretty pleased. It looks pretty stinking good. The Damascus pattern is wicked cool. This is one of my first Damascus blades that's over 10 layers. I think my first Damascus knife I ever made was about 10 layers. This one is 60, and I had no idea what this pattern was going to look like at 60 layers, just because I'm new to making Damascus, so I wasn't really sure how it was going to look. But it's really cool. You got kind of some straight to wavy lines on the bevels, and then up in the fuller you have a lot more of the circles and different patterns going on. And I just think it looks really, really cool. So the blade portion I'm pretty happy with. It turned out really good. The other side looks just as cool. Lots of different stuff going on. And I probably could have taken some more time to finish, you know, hand sanding this to make it look a little better. And the etching process was a little rushed, but for the most part, the blade's cool. The handle on the other story, not as great as I was hoping, but again, with the limited amount of time, I think it's pretty good for what it is. We started with raw brass and cast this thing, and the leather wrap was kind of a last minute add-on, and that was essentially just to kind of cover up all of the rough brass underneath that I didn't have time to sand down. There's a couple of really big pit marks underneath of here that the leather is now hiding. So there's that. But, you know, for the most part, it looks antiqued, it looks rough, and that's kind of the idea that I had. I didn't want it to be super shiny, new looking brass. I thought it would look cool to try to make something that looked old and used. And for the most part, I think I accomplished that. I just put this thing up on the scale. It weighs 2 pounds, 12 ounces. And I'm not really sure what a sword is supposed to weigh. It feels a little heavy, to be quite honest. I feel like maybe a pound might be a perfect, light, nimble type of a sword. It's not overly heavy, but when you pick it up, that's the first thing you notice, is just a little bit of weight to it. And again, I think that's due to the amount of brass that's in the handle. The balance point isn't so bad on this thing. It's right about where the bevels start. And I think, you know, the length of the sword really helps with that. So the balance point is pretty good on it. It's just really bottom heavy because of this. So anyway, I will be taking those things into consideration in the next sword that I try to build. And you better believe I'll be trying another sword in the future. This really was a lot of fun making. I had a great time doing it. And I just sent off my picture for the viewer portion of the Knife Maker Challenge. And hopefully we'll get to see the sword in the final video where they show all the viewers. I really enjoy looking at everything that people create. I'll tell you what, people are pretty stinking amazing. There are going to be some wicked cool builds out there. And in fact, I think today you'll start to begin to see some of the videos. So without further ado, we're going to wrap it up here. thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thanks for staying to the end and checking out the French Saber. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching as always, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Peace.